Hi, I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republicans, otherwise known as GOGOP. Welcome to On the Right Side. On the Right Side addresses issues that are interesting to our constituents and generally look at things from the conservative side of the spectrum. Normally we interview one person on our show. Today we have a little bit different format, focusing on youth in the Republican Party. So we have a panel of younger people, younger Republicans, who are going to give us their opinion on different topics that we'll go over today. Hopefully we'll have a spirited discussion. Number one, welcome to you all. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought to start off we would just go through and have the panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll open it up to our questions. So Maria, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, hi, I'm Maria Tarkovsky, the business leader robotics team 302 from Lake Orion High School. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Scully. I'm the secretary of the Oakland County Young Republicans.
Hi, I'm Pescarolo. I'm the founder and president of Dearborn High School Young Republicans.
Hi, I'm Christina Barr. I'm the coalition's vice chair, and I'm also an author.
Hi, I'm Jacob Newby. I'm an Addsion Township trustee.
My name is Shawn Steele. I am the chairman of the Oakland County Young Republicans.
My name is Matt Roby. I'm a legislative assistant for State Rep Jim Tedder.
Thank you all for coming. We have obviously youthful people, but at different stages of their lives. So we have some people, someone in high school, college represented, and also people who are out and about in the work world, and also a elected politician here, despite his youthful looks. What I'd like to do is just start it off with a general question, and we'll start with Maria, but then we can sort of bounce back and forth. What brought you to the Republican Party, and particularly the conservative side of things?
Well, I try to stay open-minded to all parties, but particularly the conservative side regarding today's gun reform laws and whatever else is going on with Second Amendment rights in our country. So.
And when you say gun reform and Second Amendment rights, the traditional interpretation of the right to bear arms, sometimes I hear there's the right to bear arms, but
no,
I don't see those but in the Constitution.
Right to bear arms.
Okay, terrific. Anyone else want to just sort of give us a what brought you to the Republican Party too?
Well, my family was always a hardworking group of people. They're engineers and welders and things like that. And so I got the conservative values and the value of $1 from them. And so that's where I learned a lot of my conservatism.
That's terrific. I think most people are conservatives if they own alarm clocks. Yes.
Well, with my family kind of background, my sister was the first one to kind of come out as a Republican, as she was in high school going to Pontiac Central, and she had a teacher that asked, the classroom, and this is, in Pontiac, very Democrat area, just a couple of questions to see where they range on politics. And after it was over, majority of the class found out that they're actually, more conservative. So she thought about it, and she's like, I'm actually a Republican. And she went home and told my dad, and she's like, Dad, I'm a Republican. And he said, what? And she's like, Dad, you're a Republican too. And so he had kind of been leaning that way anyway. So it's kind of hard to me to kind of imagine people talking about politics in my family and not being on the Republican side. But for me, I can say, I'm deeply, religious. I'm fiscally conservative, morally conservative. And there's just not a lot of leeway on the other side for people, if you're a Democrat and you want to live by your traditional, Christian values, watch a Senate hearing and see what Bernie Sanders and, some other people think about your views and how it can affect politics, and see if you're really welcome on that side. I would say you're not.
Right.
So this is a party that, it is a big tent party. There's people from all different spans of beliefs, but this is the party that is accepting.
I think that's terrific. That I think is going to be a theme throughout this show. So that's a very good insight. Would you like to go next?
So I became a Republican when I was 8 years old, actually. Back in '08, I heard my dad talking to my mother about gun rights and how, at the time, Senator Obama had talked about during his campaign to take away the right to bear arms. Fortunately, that never happened. But then later in '09, I learned about the issue abortion. When I heard how an abortion procedure works, that made me even go more conservative. And every day, generally, I go more far to the right, especially now with the Democrat platform pretty much being impeach Trump. That just makes me lean more far right. And when someone says I'm a racist, sexist, or Nazi or something like that, just makes me lean more right. I think Democrats attacking the president will probably hurt them more and more every day, and hopefully maybe they'll learn from their mistakes in this upcoming 2018 midterm election.
That's terrific insight. Please.
So I didn't become more of a conservative till actually my last year of college. And I know most of the time they say, like, you come out of college becoming a liberal. Well, I went to school actually in South Florida, which is actually a very Democratic area. They call it, the 3 counties, Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade is the most Democratic part of the state of Florida. And I came out because I realized paying taxes sucks. Straight up, it's not fun, and it's not fun paying into Social Security, which I probably will never see.
Right.
And additionally, just the basic freedoms, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, those were the freedoms that our founding fathers had. And to me, like, there should be no, government should be limited because it's already too big and it's impending on our freedoms. And so that's part of the reason why I became a Republican.
The party of freedom instead of free stuff.
So you just
Exactly.
stepped out of college and got some fresh air, thought it over, and like, oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, and I worked on political campaigns in South Florida, and that gave me a nice kind of taste into the political spectrum to really kind of see where, what values were held. And I'm a Christian too, so I definitely found those Christian values more welcomed in the Republican Party.
Fantastic insight. How about the back row?
Yeah, I'll go. Originally, obviously, I'm very pro Second Amendment, NRA member, but what really got me is limiting government overreach on just your everyday life. And there's so many regulations now these days. We're cutting them back finally, but just to do what you want, open up a small business, on any number of things, just limit government overreach. That's really my core value as becoming a conservative.
That's a strong value. What happens is you get a smothering central government that tries to make rules and regulations, and sometimes not even laws, just rules and regulations at a distance, and they really don't understand the constituents locally. Shawn, you want to wrap it up?
Sure. I think I've really always been a conservative. I was raised with a very high set of morals, religious values, faith, and a self-reliance that once I met a friend of mine who's a lifelong friend now. He's the one that got me involved in politics, and he's what really brought me in to be a, not just a conservative, but a Republican and someone involved, and everything seems to line up really well with all my morals, my faith, and a lot of my beliefs to the Republican Party, and that's why I have stayed.
Again, fantastic insight. We're talking to some younger voters and Republicans. This is On the Right Side. I'm Al Hassinger, and thank you all for tuning in. Part of the theme that I'm picking up is the influence you have or people have had on you that brought you into the Republican Party. You said it was your sister initially at Pontiac Central, and then you hearing the experience she went through, and then talking to your parents about it. Do you find that there's, and anyone can sort of jump in, do you find there's a lot of people hiding out there who are afraid to speak up regarding their conservative or Republican values because of what they're sort of told in the media, how young people think and act? Yes.
Definitely. The rhetoric is so heated, as we saw in 2016, that it became pretty critical that speaking out or even posting anything that was simply more conservative than what the Democrats were spewing became very concerning. And you would have people lash out at you instantly, strangers. Anybody, everybody was taking shots at you. And so, who wants to be belittled and berated,
right.
Just going onto their social media and basically practicing their own freedom of speech.
Right.
And I think that we do have a lot more people that are not as, I don't want to say the word courageous, but do not feel like they are able to speak their mind freely as they should be able to in the United States of America.
I think there's a certain amount of courage to that, no doubt about it. That is courageous. Anybody else want to give us some insight? Maria?
I think a lot of this has to do with religion and your religious views, because liberals and conservatives both have their own religious views, and I feel like religion sometimes can make a conversation very heated, because, for example, if someone is religious and believes in free love and someone who's religious and does not believe in free love, you have this sort of tension no matter if you are a liberal or a conservative. And I think that if you're going to be open-minded, you have to be wary of what others may think, even if you're in a church or if you're on the streets.
Right. No one's going to agree on everything all the time, and we shouldn't expect that. Anybody else want to give a little input? Yes.
Well, to kind of play back what she was saying, there's, like I said earlier, it's a really big, tent party, and I know quite a bit of people after like the gay marriage thing was settled. There's kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't have to fight for this anymore. I can kind of come out as a Republican now. Because, like you said, taxes, suck. Most people, when you talk to them, they are very leery of big government, no matter if they're kind of Republican or if they're Democrats. Most people will agree that, big government sucks. But the thing you kind of have to convince the other side is, well, why do you want to give them more power to continue not doing things well in your life, So, also, I know this past election cycle has been very, very heated as far as people from all kinds of sides. But, being, African American, that has been, a lifetime thing about, if you're Republican, you're seen as an Uncle Tom or a sellout, and, other egregious things that you can say for expressing a different opinion. So, but when you talk to people, there is some convincing, particularly with minorities. Like and I've heard this beyond, African Americans. If you kind of break it down, you'll see a lot of people are actually on our side, but they've been, taught kind of another way. So once we kind of looked at our principles and looked at our platform, that's when, we could make a logical decision. So a lot of people just don't have the information or take the time to really dissect who they are.
And that's up to us, is to get the information out there. We're our own commercial for the Republican Party. Shawn.
Something I see a lot of is not necessarily being afraid to come out as a Republican, but a disinterest in getting involved. They see a lot of the fighting and a lot of the unkept promises and stuff like that. And while they'll go and vote, and they may vote all the time. They may vote in every primary and general election because of what they see going on in politics, in the media, and in on places like Facebook. They just don't have an interest in getting involved in that at all. So they just stay quiet. They move along. They get about their day and do the things that matter most to them instead of politics.
That's a good segue, because nowadays people talk about they friend someone or unfriend someone, and does that really mean friend, if they're their friend or not? When we come back, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back and go through a little bit of the social media aspect of it. What addressing your liberal, quote-unquote, liberal friends is like, and to see if you've changed any minds, maybe family members. I'm Al Hassinger. This is On the Right Side, brought to you by the Greater Oakland Republican Club, otherwise known as GOGOP. We're speaking to young Republicans in this episode and getting some ideas about how what younger people think about conservative issues that affect them directly, and maybe that there's a lot more of them out there than we might have suspected. So stick with us, and we'll be right back with On the Right Side. Hi, I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republicans and host of On the Right Side. And I want to remind you to join us at our signature event for the year, the GOGOP Oktoberfest, September 21st at Canterbury Village in Lake Orion. You can check out more information at www.gogop.club, and also contact any GOGOP member if you see them out and about. So that's September 21st at Canterbury Village in Lake Orion. You'll join us for food, fun, and just have a wonderful time. This year's songs will be sung by Mr. Dan Bryson, and I can guarantee you a wonderful time. So join us for the Oktoberfest, September 21st at Canterbury Village. Remember, it's www.gogop.club, and remember to like us on Facebook. Hi, welcome back to On the Right Side. I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for the Greater Oakland Republican Club, otherwise known as GOGOP. On this episode of On the Right Side, we have young Republicans with us, giving us a little bit different perspective than some of our previous shows. Welcome back, panelists. We have young Republicans, some in high school, some in college, some out in the work world, giving us some insight on how they interact with their friends, family, how they came to their Republican and conservative values, and hopefully we'll have a little insight on where the Republican club is headed, Republicans in general. But we wanted to talk a little bit about social media. I have to admit that I don't do Facebook. I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg's going to call me and ask me directly because I'm the last person on the planet who doesn't. But social media seems to have such an effect on everybody these days, particularly young people. Even Facebook, I guess, is passé already. Now it's Twitter or texting or whatever the heck the next thing is. I don't even know the right ones to throw out there. Can anyone just give us, how about a little bit of insight on the aspect of social media, on how it affects you, your thoughts, and is that how you get your news? Perhaps do you find that to be even-handed, or give us a little bit of insight, Alexandra?
Yeah, so I actually work professionally in the government affairs world. So I get a lot of my news and different things that I'm following by following different congressional and state reporters on Twitter. So I've been on Twitter for 9 years. I'm a huge Twitter fan. And I just love being able to see their different articles that they've posted or different links and people going back and forth. But just with any social media, you have to be careful about what you're seeing. From a campaign standpoint, social media is great. You can utilize it for reaching new voters, reaching people who probably you wouldn't be able to reach necessarily grassroots-wise or phone banking, but you're able to touch them on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. You can do Snapchat filters at the polls or around the polls, different things like that. Like social media, I believe, has opened up a great side of the political sphere, but also can be detrimental as well.
As an elected official, Jacob, how did you utilize social media, and did you specifically reach out to younger people in that fashion, or is that for everybody?
I think social media is for everybody. Facebook is a lot for the older generation.
Is that the junk drawer of the internet now, or
No, I don't
cat
think
pictures
so.
and paper clips and things?
Yeah, but I use Instagram as my main platform, but you can share to all the other platforms just by using Instagram, so that's why I enjoy it so much.
Okay.
But I use my website. I just got around to the community. I didn't use social media as much as I would have liked to, but that's because, you can't just directly follow everyone in your township or something.
Still comes down to
I wish.
shoe leather, I imagine, sometimes going door to door, and
Yeah.
you can interact with someone online, but it's very different when you get in front of them in person, just like we're hopefully getting that effect today.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I have to watch out what I post on social media because, people are always watching and, just...
You guys probably get a lot of reaction from friends because of social media postings, maybe because they don't, some people might not see eye to eye with you, but I also think it leads to, like, all of a sudden you're arguing with someone like in New Zealand about something. It used to be don't talk to strangers. Now we seem to talk to every stranger on the planet, maybe to our own detriment. I don't know. Dylan, what's something that you've run into with social media, either pro or con, and how it shaped your political beliefs?
Well, I would say this happened to me twice, actually. I posted something about Senator Lankford from Oklahoma about how we care about more how we kill animals than we do about human beings, especially with Planned Parenthood. And I posted it and said how awful we care more about killing animals than babies. And someone reacted saying that Planned Parenthood actually offers all these great stuff and everyone just focuses on abortion, which I'm not so sure if that's quite true. And then another time also, I took a picture with a student who had a hat that said "Deport Trump," and then I was wearing a "Make America Great Again" hat. And they posted that on the city Instagram page, and people from like New York were attacking me and all over the country. And I was just saying, this is freedom of speech. I'm not trying to impose my opinion on you. I'm just showing my expression that I support the president.
Matt, any insight on social media and how it's affected you?
Yeah, well, if you know me, you know I'm not really a social media guy. I prefer the face-to-face contact. If you're gonna do outreach, I like doing it at the doorstep. I don't really utilize it. For my boss, Jim Tedder, of course, we promote him while he's out at events, and I think it's a good platform, but not the most effective.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's still getting in front of people. Christina, how about a little insight?
Well, when I was the creative director for the Michigan Republican Party, my life was pretty much making stuff for social media. And I mean, one video we did had, close to 900,000 views. Maybe it got over that, but from a campaign perspective, it does a lot. Really engages people. We had since we were bashing Hillary Clinton, there were Bernie people who also shared it. So we got stuff that went around. I mean, it helped attract volunteers. It helped attract donations. So I mean, there's a way to really use it properly. To answer the question, is it even-handed? Absolutely not. I mean, Google basically fired somebody for. They asked for opinions on how to have more women involved in the workplace, and he gave a thorough explanation, and they called it sexism. And YouTube has, demonetized people on the right. Facebook is weird with their ads and their algorithms sometimes. So it's not really even-handed, and in the long term, maybe there has to be some other conservative solutions to the problem. But I mean, companies have the right to do what they, whatever they want, but it's not even-handed at all.
Well, instead of fewer voices, more voices, I think. Fewer speech, or less speech, that much more speech. Maria, I want to just wrap up with you on this topic, and then we are gonna discriminate in this crowd, because we're gonna just focus on the what women conservatives go through in this day and age. So, Maria, you just want to wrap up with a little social media, and then I'll follow up with another question about your experience inside the Republican Party.
I see a lot of, for example, there's a funny video on social media, and I look at the comments, and it's all like, oh my gosh, you're discriminating so many people, and I see paragraphs of arguments between two random people from different countries, and it's like, you're wasting your time, you're not getting anything out of this, and a lot of very sensitive people on social media, and I think it's overrated.
That's very good insight. Thank you, and thank you all. Again, this is On the Right Side. I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republicans. Thank you for tuning in. We're looking at the youth aspect of the Republican Party, and just went over a little bit about social media. Now I'd just like to focus on the women in the room. We all have different opinions, but I think at least how the media portrays things, that women seem to lean more towards the quote-unquote liberal side of the ledger, and not so much the conservative side of the ledger. At least that's what you're led to believe in television. Could you give us a little bit of insight about maybe your experience as a conservative woman? I know we've all touched on it, but just a little short synopsis, and we'll hit the three of you and see what you say.
I mean, people do say, how can you as a black person or a black woman or a woman vote the way you vote? And I just go by what my ideas are personally, and I make the best decisions. I mean, moms want to make sure that their kids are safe. One thing that, particularly in the black community, that is very popular that Democrats don't like is school choice.
Right.
When we talk about vouchers, families like the idea of saying, hey, money should follow your child, whether they go to a charter school or a private school, or even if they want it to help with homeschool, rather than it all being poured into the public school system. And I graduated from a public school, but people choose different paths for their kids. So you talk about party of choice.
Yep.
Who's the party of school choice?
Well, that's very interesting. If someone says they're pro-choice, you say, "Oh, you're for school choice." Oh, no, that's something different. Alexandra?
So during the 2016 election cycle, I was working for a female candidate, Republican, who was running for Congress against a deeply embedded Democrat. And I did get yelled at because I did say that I was not voting for Hillary Clinton. And I mean, I didn't tell them who I was voting for, but I just simply said, nope, that's not the way. And it's strictly because I look at my views and I look at what candidate aligns and what candidate do I believe will enact those policies that's going to be best. And I believe in empowering women. That's our job as females, to empower one another. It's not a political party's job.
Right.
It's our job as women and as human beings to empower one another. And I don't believe a political party should be responsible for that. I believe it's all of us being together and being able to say, hey, you'd be great for that position, or I encourage you in this leadership position. We should not be discriminating against whoever sides with who on which party.
That's excellent insight. It's like if we were all applying for a job on a radio station. Who would care? It's radio. We can't see you anyway. Maria, one last thought.
I think it's about your perspective. If you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm oppressed, then you're gonna go around all your life seeing oppression everywhere. If you believe that, okay, I'm a woman, I'm smart, I can do this, then no one's gonna see an issue with it. It's about how you look at things, and that doesn't matter which party you're coming from. It matters about your morals and what you believe in as a woman.
That's fantastic insight from everybody. Thank you all. Again, this is On the Right Side. I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republicans, touching on some ideas and thoughts from the younger generation, the future of our party. We've gone through some broader topics and sort of just how we feel about things and how people feel about us in general being conservatives. Let's touch on some individual things, particularly, Dylan, you had mentioned the Second Amendment. A lot of times we have, well, the Second Amendment's fine, but, well, I don't remember there being a but after the Second Amendment. Could you just give us a little thoughts on your feeling for the Second Amendment and if you feel it's being sort of challenged right now from people on the left?
Oh, definitely. With the Parkland shooting, all those school walkouts, one happened at my school, and they picked like the 10 political leaders in the school, which, you know, I was one of them. And at first it was just going to be about honoring the kids who died, and then our Young Democrats Club members, they started walking into the meeting and they said, no, it needs to be about gun control, and I didn't believe that, so I didn't participate. And I have plenty of family members in my family who say that only hunting rifles should be legal, not assault weapons, which my father owns a few assault rifles, and so does my grandfather. And actually, recently I went to a Second Amendment march in Lansing and spoke at it, talking about how I believe that I feel safer with an armed guard in my school, and maybe not all teachers, but some teachers that I know are responsible with weapons having a gun. Mm-hmm. And people say, well, don't you think more students are more likely to die if a shooter comes in and there's firing back and forth? I'm like, somebody might get hurt, unfortunately, but more than likely the shooter's going to die than the 2,000 kids within the high school.
I've been to meetings where half of the group seemed to want the school to be an armed camp and the other half wanted it to be a fortress. And I think what we need to do is address why anybody walked into the school to do anything dangerous with anything. Shawn, any insight on sort of challenge to the Second Amendment you might have seen out there and how we fight back against that?
Well, a lot of the challenges has been trying to solve gun crime with legislation. And I don't ever really see a lot of these arbitrary laws or ideas for laws, I should say, as something that'll help. You ban one particular gun, okay. Now, when a shooting happens with a different particular gun, do we then ban that one? Where does it end? We can go around in a circle like that, and that's not going to solve things.
Right. What's the root cause? It's not so much the gun. It could be a car or a knife, or but basically it's the lunatic that's holding on to whatever the weapon of choice is. Well, thank you all. We're moving along very quickly in our show. I'm Al Hassinger. This is On the Right Side. We've breezed through a second segment, and we will be right back with some more insight from our youthful Republicans after this.
Dragon on the Lake returns to Lake Orion in August with numerous events scheduled over a 4-day period. Started in 2009 to celebrate the Orion Arts Center's 30th anniversary, the annual event offers fun for the whole family. Things kick off on Thursday, August 23rd with the Chamber of Commerce Thirsty Thursday and Chili Cook-Off at 4:30 p.m. And 105.1 The Bounce gets the party started with old school jams at 7:30 p.m. in the Dragon Pub. On Friday, visitors can enjoy a craft beer and wine tasting at 6 p.m., and the band Rockstar goes on stage at 8:30 p.m. An annual tradition continues at sunset as decorated boats travel around Lake Orion during the Lighted Boat Parade. Saturday morning kicks off with a brand new event. The Dragon on the Run 5K begins at 9 a.m. at the corner of Anderson and Front Street, with participants passing through downtown Lake Orion onto beautiful Paint Creek Trail. Enjoy music in the Dragon Pub all day Saturday, culminating with a performance by the always popular Square Pegs at 8:30 p.m. Don't miss the opening ceremony for the Dragon Boat races on Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. in Greens Park. Throughout the day, teams will be competing for the title of 2018 Dragon Boat Race Champion. There's also a chalk art challenge, kids zone, and a whole lot more for the entire family to enjoy. For more information, visit DragonOnTheLake.com or follow Dragon on the Lake on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republicans, and welcome back to On the Right Side. On this episode, we have some younger Republicans with us. Welcome back to our panel, and thank you for joining us. When we went to break, we were talking about the Second Amendment, the effects that it's had on people, the effect that the media and the liberals are trying to have on it, and I was neglecting the gentleman in the back row. So maybe, Matt, why don't you start for some insight on it? We'll work down with Shawn and then Jacob, and then we're going to change the subject a little bit.
Sounds great. Yeah, the Second Amendment is what it says in the Constitution, no ifs, ands, or buts. Honestly, there's so much talk about changing and infringing these days, but I see it as crazy. So you take that gun out of their hands, they're going to grab a knife or a car or if they want to cause destruction, they will. And I think they are unfairly trying to put that burden on law-abiding gun owners.
Right, we rarely hear about people defending their home or their business or their
Exactly.
family with a gun. Shawn?
I think the important point is we can't legislate morality to people. I think there's laws and ways we can go to both protect the Constitution and help make people safer. But, I think a lot of what's being discussed today is just trying to put a Band-Aid on the issues that we have in this country, in morality, in civil discourse, and frankly, evil that's in this world.
Civility, civil discourse, evil, what, morality? Wait a second. Jacob, you want to finish us up on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do think they're targeting the Second Amendment, and I've also noticed that they're targeting the NRA specifically, even though no one really discusses that it's a training organization for gun safety.
Right.
So if we're going to solve these problems, we got to start with, I guess, an open mind.
I think that's good advice for anybody. Again, we're talking to younger voters today, or younger Republicans today, and we want to thank you for being here. Talking about the Second Amendment, sometimes people say, well, it doesn't apply to this gun or that gun because back in the Revolutionary War they wouldn't have had that. Yet freedom of speech still applies to cell phones and television and the internet, but that wasn't around back then. So sometimes that seems to get lost in the shuffle.
That's also not true. There were high-capacity weapons back then. I mean, people, when they had issues dealing with pirates, and they wrote to the founders, hey, can we use our cannons to defend ourselves? And they're like, that's why we wrote the Second Amendment. So
Right, I think you wanted all the firepower you could get when you were going up against the bad guys back then. The Second Amendment has been under attack, and in the last however many decades, the Supreme Court has done it no favors. Well, except maybe recently, but for a long time they were trying to twist it. We now have the chance to have a new conservative Supreme Court justice elected, or appointed rather, and President Trump has done so. Any thoughts on the new Supreme Court justice? Jacob?
My thought is that as long as he interprets the Constitution as the way the founders wanted, as an originalist, then he's okay with me. So
That sounds good to me. Alexandra?
I'm really looking forward to his Senate confirmation hearings because I truly enjoyed Justice Gorsuch's time to really entertain the different senators' opinions and different questions, because I believe that through that process and that civil discourse that we do have set up, that we'll be able to see and to show that this is the right person to be on our Supreme Court.
Terrific. Matt?
Yeah, from what I've read, he seems like a very fair, distinguished man. It seems like he's going to, if he gets appointed, will take the Supreme Court in the direction I think our country needs it to head. Really looking forward to the confirmation as well.
Dylan, some insight?
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I don't know too much about the new Supreme Court justice yet, but I'm looking forward to listening to a little bit what he has to say, and I'm hoping that with him, if he does get confirmed, which I think he will, possibly changing some past legislation, such as like Roe v. Wade, maybe overturning the Roe v. Wade and giving power back to the states to decide whether a child has a right to life or not. And I also think that President Trump may actually appoint 2 more Supreme Court justices.
I would agree with that. Shawn?
I definitely don't understand the outrage on the left that came from this nomination, because I would bet that most Americans didn't really know who this man was before he was nominated.
And they didn't care. The outrage was pre-planned, and they just filled in the name.
Exactly.
You know, the signs is like, drop the name in, whoever it is.
Exactly. But as far as the man goes, Brett Kavanaugh,
Yes.
he really hit it out of the park, I think, with his acceptance speech of his nomination, and hit some of the important points that he will approach the bench with an open mind and originalist to the intent of the writers of the Constitution, and I think that's by far the most important aspect of any judge.
I would agree. And what Kavanaugh had to say was very profound. He talked about his family. He talked about his faith. He brings all of the tools to the court that I think we would look for him to bring. Jacob, did we hit you on this one?
Yes, you did already.
All right, I apologize. I lost track. One last one from Christina.
Well, I just want to say I think I'm looking forward to the hearings and to see how he'll judge how that will transfer from the circuit court to the Supreme Court. I mean, we'll just kind of have to see if he makes kind of broad movements, I guess, in the court with like overturning something big like Roe. Some conservatives have said they don't think he'll probably make those big leaps, but I mean, we'll just kind of have to see. But I think it's insane how much the court is politicized, especially, I mean, the Democrats just get so upset when they lose. I mean, Justice Thomas had to go through he called it a high-tech lynching back in the day. And I mean, I would have been insane to see how they would have gone off to Barrett and waged their war on women, but now, you know, they're making fun of his name being Brett. They're saying just because he coaches his daughter's, team doesn't mean that he's for women, and just a bunch of insane things that they're coming after him about. And they just kind of need to stick to whether or not he's going to look at the law and follow the law, and that's all it really needs to be.
And I feel that, and not to I have to direct the conversation. I think the Supreme Court was in the business of making laws for a long time, and let's hope they get back to just being the judges that they're supposed to be and the arbiters of what the Congress is doing, and not sort of a superseding branch of government that can negate the will of the people. As however many, the 9 of them, men and women in black robes, can overturn anything. Let's hope they just stick to the Constitution. Very interesting topic, and great insight from our panel, and I want to thank everybody for watching On the Right Side. I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for the Greater Oakland Republicans Club. Just to get down to some of the meat and potatoes things here in Michigan, how can we have anybody who lives in Michigan and not talk about the roads? We're going to just a little bit of insight where maybe we used to talk about in economics class guns and butter. So it was a trade-off. You either have defense spending or you're going to have social spending. And now we seem to have guns and butter, yet we never seem to get to the butter part. The roads don't get paved. There seems to be a lot of money for things that we never see any direct result. At the state level, what changes would you like to see made that we are sort of inching towards, but maybe we could hit the gas on? Matt?
Well, this past budget cycle, we've increased our state funding for roads to a record high. On top of that, we've got a budget surplus due to fiscally conservative spending, where we put, I think it was $75 million additional dollars towards the roads.
I think that'll get us 2 roundabouts.
Exactly. So it's one little bit at a time, and they're playing the long goal here. But I think we also need to look at the material we're using and how we can benefit that. Everything's changing, and new technologies coming out, whether it be the actual material we use or the machinery that we use to lay it. I think there's always room for improvement there.
I have a feeling Matt's been asked this question before. Excellent insight, though. Anybody else want to weigh in? Shawn?
I know this may be a little unpopular, but I think something that we need to look at here in Michigan is the MEDC. Between advertising costs and subsidies to businesses that move a few people here, but take huge advantages of the subsidies and never fully plant the roots in Michigan that the government is expecting they do with the subsidies.
And that's a little bit of inside baseball. Michigan Economic Development Corporation?
Yes, I apologize, yes.
No, that's quite all right. A lot of people wouldn't be familiar with it, but they might be familiar with some of their projects.
Yes, Pure Michigan is one of their projects, and I know
Right.
that helps a lot of the northern and west side of the state communities with tourism, but they do a lot of other things, including the subsidies and the reaching out and trying to attract businesses to Michigan. And while I like that and I want to see businesses move here, they haven't been as successful as they lead people to believe with actually creating a lot of jobs.
Well, like the city of Pontiac didn't even make Pontiacs anymore, but they thought they could make movies there.
Yes.
Until the subsidies went away, and then we still have plenty of economic activity in Pontiac, probably more than ever or in a long time, and it just doesn't happen to be in the movie business. Jacob, some insight on maybe some local politics, something that you're seeing or not seeing?
Well, one of the things I always notice is that they never focus on the things that actually have some meat in them. Like our state government gives a lot of money to universities, public universities, a lot of them who censor speech. And so I've always wondered, why don't we redirect some of the money that they're using to upgrade their university to add like a racquetball court or something like that and put it towards the roads,
Some of those hard choices that people don't actually want to make.
Yeah.
I think that's excellent insight. Anybody else for some local thoughts? Dylan?
I think a lot of people talk about roads, but a lot, and especially in Michigan, but I don't think people talk too much about education enough, especially. I see in our schools a lot of times, when I went to public school, our teachers, they have to spend a lot of their own money on school supplies, which I don't think that should be happening. It should be let up to the government because that's where our tax dollars are going to. Also, I think certain teachers, especially high school teachers, aren't getting paid enough because they have to deal with a lot. There's a lot of bad kids in school. I had to deal with it a lot, but I really do think we need to pour money into our public education, actually.
And I think putting the money into public education is certainly a worthy goal, but as long as it gets to the classroom and to the students, and doesn't get put into some, ethereal plan that never seems to actually touch the students themselves. We're flying through another segment here. This is On the Right Side. I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republicans, and we're joined by some young Republicans today. After a short break, we'll be right back with our last segment. Thanks.
Breaker 19, Breaker 19. You got your ears on? Put the hammer down and come on out to Orion Township's 15th annual Big Rig Gig on August 3rd, beginning at 5 p.m. at Friendship Park. Load up the family and explore dozens of trucks, tractors, diggers, dozers, bucket trucks, backloaders, and emergency vehicles of all shapes and sizes. Come early, stay late, and don't forget the Kodak camera. For more information, visit OrionParks.com. Keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down, and I'm gone.
Welcome back to On the Right Side. I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republicans. If you want to check us out, look at www.gogop.club. We're talking to young Republicans today on this episode of On the Right Side. We've had a very spirited conversation with our 6 panelists, and just want to continue on with a little bit of the future, because you guys are the future of the state, the country, and certainly of the Republican Party, and then maybe some specific ideas that people can take away, including how we might attract more young people to the party. So, what do you think the future of the Republican Party is in Michigan? Alexandra.
In Michigan, we saw Michigan kind of take this really awesome turn in 2016, so I really hope that we can continue to build upon that. I believe something that we need to have not only statewide but also party-wide and nationally needs to be that compassionate conservatism, because the Democrats love to play on that, the Dreamers Act. They love to play on these cutesy-bootsy names that are adorable but don't actually properly display, but they tug on people's heartstrings. So we need to show them that we are compassionate conservatives. We're here to protect your freedoms. We're here to make sure that nobody stops you from pursuing your happiness and keeps you safe and sound.
It's it's certainly how people feel, but it's also how it is.
But not enough people know that, so we got to make sure we spread that.
Fantastic insight. Jacob, as an elected official.
I think the future of the Republican Party is pretty good. I'm as an elected official, I think that young people running for office and stuff, it's happening all over the state. A few guys are running for state rep. A few guys are running for other offices, varying from city council to dog catcher, I guess. But
Or the most grassroots way to get involved is being a precinct delegate,
that's right.
right? We have one in the room.
Which I'm signed up for, by the way, in Addison Township if you vote for Jacob Newby.
There you go.
Also, I think some of the issues that the Republican Party stands for, like they just need to advertise what they believe in and why they stand for that, and show the actual values of the people inside the Republican Party.
Could we all agree maybe that one thing we're deficient on is messaging?
I can agree on that.
Yeah.
Messaging.
Yeah.
Shawn,
Well, you mentioned messaging, and I think that a lot of times the media and the Democrats message for us in a negative way. They tell people what we are, but I don't think it's usually very accurate, or if it is accurate, it's framed in a negative way.
right?
I think the Republican Party needs to focus on a few things, and I think those are winners, like individual liberty, having the government stay out of your own business, different businesses, and letting the businesses operate how they want to, and let the free market determine some of the things that the government currently regulates.
Sure, who knows better who's going to pay the bank back than the bank?
Exactly.
Christina,
Well, hopefully, pray to God that the state stays red. And red leadership, we've had, such an amazing comeback from the days of Granholm. And it would be a shame that someone who signed off on all of her bad deals became the next governor. That would be awful. But nationally, I think, the GOP is in good hands. We have an amazing chairwoman with Ronna Romney McDaniel.
yes, Oakland County's own.
They got some great people working up there. My sister is actually the head of urban outreach and women engagement, and I think we'll see a lot of actually maybe it won't be a huge surge, but I do think you'll start to see minorities coming over. I think you'll see some of the outreach kind of start to die down a little bit, because you can't live off of that forever. It's kind of tiring, and people will see economy booming. They'll feel more money in their pocket, and they'll
Right.
see that the GOP is about jobs, and
Success.
as long as you have the power in your hands, you are capable of uplifting yourself and your family, and you're more optimistic.
Right. Democrats talk about the minimum wage. Why don't we talk about the maximum wage? Why do we care so little about someone that we talk about the minimum? Let's see how high we can lift them.
Yeah.
Dylan,
I think the future is going to be bright for us. At least I truly think that we are going to have President Trump for another 4 years in 2020, and I think after him we might have a President Pence, and possibly even a President Haley, which would be great if we could have that. I think within at least my generation, Roe v. Wade will get repealed, and my grandchildren's generation will see that Supreme Court case the same way we view slavery as in today. I am very confident that the state will continue to go Republican, at least in 2020. I think we will have a Republican governor, and I think we just need to continue talking more about individual liberty to especially younger minds, and talk about what Republicans can actually offer, and how Democrats may say they talk about younger voters, but generally I think they're talking more about younger voters such as illegals and trying to get their vote in.
very interesting insight and very profound stuff from our panel. I really have to thank you all. You've been terrific. I think a lot of people don't hear the youth voice in the Republican Party, and that's what On the Right Side's all about, is getting the word out. So I want to thank you all. Did I not hit anybody yet on the future? Matt, I apologize.
Yeah, just to differentiate a little bit, as far as growing for the future with more of the younger generation getting involved, something that doesn't get talked about too much in Republican conservative circles, some environmental things. As a sportsman, an off-road person, and somebody who likes to go camping, those are big things within our party, but we don't always put an emphasis on it. especially with all of our great resources in our state.
Right.
I think it's pretty crucial that we try to conserve those as best as possible.
Right. Who cares more about there being lots of fish and wildlife than the hunter or the fisher?
Exactly.
Terrific. Again, excellent insight. Right now, we're getting close to the end of the show. This has really been a fantastic group, and I just wanted to ask everyone individually to wrap up with sort of one thing that you would look to do or tweak going into the future, and then how you might work to attract more young people into the Republican Party. Christina, why don't we just start and go across and around? We'll end at Jacob, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, as a coalition's chair, I want to make sure that we outreach to people of all groups and make sure that they're well represented. One idea that we had executed in February when Black Panther came out, we had a Black Panther showing, which the RNC paid for, and people didn't know it was a Republican event. So we had a lot of Democrats that came in.
I thought it wasn't the Black Panthers.
No. And so we're talking about the Marvel movie.
Right.
But kind of forever.
Right, we're a big tent, but within reason.
And before the movie started, we had a panel that was like a Black business panel. I was on it, and we had the former urban outreach director on it, and some business people, and we talked about the tax plan. And when we were doing Q&As, I thought we'd get some hostile people, and we had people like, okay, what are you guys going to do? Because most Black people are Democrats, and we don't have this information. So they're kind of challenging us to help them get more information so they can be more informed and make better, decisions for family and stuff. So, and basically I said we just need to do better with getting this information out there. But there's people, if they know, they can start to analyze. So messaging is kind of hard for Republicans, and I think mostly because it kind of goes beyond a soundbite,
Right.
But we need that one-on-one time. So I think doing knocking door to door, Facebook is great, but it's not real activism. You have to meet someone face to face and have a conversation.
I think that's excellent advice. Dylan.
In the future, I have a great passion for politics. I would like to run someday. One thing I would like to do is possibly add an amendment to both the state and the United States Constitution, saying that all people, including unborn lives, are to have the same rights as people who are alive, like persons, so you cannot abort them. Also, I like to work on improving our education. I would especially like to outreach to younger people and encouraging them to run, because a lot of our politicians who are much older are starting to retire. I would like to get younger people to run, and maybe show a way that young minds have new ideas and fresh ideas that we could put out into the sphere. So
Excellent advice. Alexandra.
Well, I've been pretty blessed to be working with the Oakland County Young Republicans and to be the secretary along with Shawn. And so I just want to continue to have those opportunities to engage new voters, to engage new Republicans to the area. Royal Oak and Oakland County is booming right now. And so we have such a prime opportunity to really engage different people and just continue those advocacy and education efforts that we can make sure that we are reaching out to new sides of the spectrum and reach out to everyone and just, being more courageous about, my beliefs and, who I want to support, and, not being completely afraid of the liberal whiplash.
You might be pleasantly surprised how many people see it your way. Matt.
Yeah, going forward, I think we need the Republican Party as a whole needs to put a better emphasis on kind of centralizing leadership. We're so divided these days, even within our own party, that we could just be so much more productive if we can focus and get behind a central figure, whether it be Trump or whatnot. I think that's one of the most important things for our party going forward is, just becoming a team and
Focus.
Yeah, focus.
Fantastic. Shawn.
I think we saw with the election of President Trump that Republicans have winning messages. We have plans, we have ideas that people like. And I think we need to focus on writing our own narrative and finding new ways to get that message out there, whether it's through unique media opportunities like Christina was talking about with the Black Panther movie, or technology in general, social media, whatever it might be. If we can reach out and communicate those messages to younger people and all people of all ages and backgrounds, really, I think we can go a long way.
Fantastic. Jacob, bring us home.
Yeah, well, I always have thought that if you just tell the people you know personally about your beliefs and why you believe them, they might change over. I personally know because I have a lot of liberal family members. And the issue for the future, I think, or anything like that, that I would try to implement would be a balanced budget amendment, it feels like. Maybe like not too strict, but just strict enough to where it gets their congressman in line.
As long as they don't balance it with new taxes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining us, and also we did have one person leave early because everyone has a very hectic schedule, so we didn't kick anybody off the island. There was just a little adjustment we made on the fly. I'm Al Hassinger. This is On the Right Side, brought to you by the Greater Oakland Republican Club, and I want to thank our panelists and thank you for watching. Tune in next time for some more insight on things from the right side. Thank you.